Folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that I came across more or less by accident, but it kind of feeds into the wider social narrative going across the Western world at the moment. This is the behavior of and the consequences of bad behavior from boss chick Karens. Now, many people have probably seen the thing where the police pull over boss chick Karens, whether they be white or black, but it seems to be women are the bigger problem here by far. They pull them over for speeding or I don't know, drunk driving or something like that, and they think by giving attitude and I'm going to tell everybody you raped me and that all that sort of stuff, they can get away with any sort of accountability. And I'll talk a bit more about accountability in the workplace in a minute, but it just seems to be a standard thing. Now, I'm sure there are women that say, okay, officer, here's my license, and they just accept the speeding ticket, and that's the end of it. But if you look at all the arguments, the noteworthy sort of traffic stops, they seem to be, certainly from what I've seen, 95% women giving attitude, and I don't know why that is, but it is. Now, I'll come back again to the workplace and draw some parallels here, but what caught my eye was a report which I sat on for a while, and I was looking for it again and couldn't find it, but I did find some other vids that out on safari or tour guides, when you go out into the jungle on tour as part of some sort of a vacation package or something like that, and you go with a tour guide and very strict instructions, that nearly all the fatalities are women on those safari, whether they're getting eaten by lions or eaten by crocodiles or alligators or whatever the fuck it is. Nearly all the fatalities are women. Now, fatalities of men when they occur are schoolboy age, and they've been they'll do a dare or something stupid. Or some guy was off his face. He was smoking crack or something like that, and he went out in the night to walk around when there were signs everywhere and very strict instructions: do not go outside during the night. So anyway, why is it that nearly all the deaths are women in these things? And it comes back to the same thing. For the ones where they've recorded and there are reports online saying, Billie Jean accused the tour guide. He was just mansplaining when he was telling him about the dangers. He was just trying to make, acting like a big tough man with little girls, and she wasn't going to take any of that. She was a boss chick, and she'd show him. Just because he's a man doesn't mean to take any notice of you, and so on. Now, these Karen boss chicks, they seem to view every human interaction or discussion as being some sort of a fight to the death type thing. They have to win. So these women are just ignoring all the guide's instructions, all the written instructions, all the warnings that come with the tour package and so on. Stay in a tight group with the guide and all this sort of stuff. And they don't do it. Instead, they just wander off and I'm a boss chick. Nothing happened to me. If any straight white male comes up to me in downtown New York, I'll just take them to HR. I'll just tell HR that they've been bad, and that'll fix their little red wagon. And of course, this attitude really doesn't work outside of the very, very artificial atmosphere, super artificial atmosphere that you see in the workplace and in the social engineering bullshit that's all across the Western world. But in the jungle and out in the swamps and the Everglades or in the Australian tropical zones, this sort of thing, these crocodiles and alligators, and they'll they grab hold of you, you're dead. So you have to display the proper sort of caution, and these women are just, in some cases you see these women just deciding to jump in an alligator infested or crocodile infested lake and start swimming around. What? Are you serious? With the guide screaming at them, get back in the boat. And, yeah, fuck you, you damn, don't mansplain me, you damn oppressor. I learned in gender studies that all men are oppressor Nazis. So don't you try to tell me what to do, motherfucker. And of course, then moments later, they're dead. Now, why would they do this? I mean, it's an attitude thing. They've been encouraged to think this way. They've been encouraged to think that under no circumstances about anything will they ever be accountable, and they don't have to be accountable. And if there's a man involved, then they're damn well not going to be accountable. Now, but I came across this attitude it's deeply ingrained in women. In the workplace. Now, when I first, as a young guy just starting out, there weren't many women in the workplace, and the ones that were there were mainly like receptionists or typists or word processor operators or just junior administration clerks and that sort of thing. So, but as times changed and wokeness started to creep in varying levels, some companies decided they had to have more women in sort of the better paid or more senior roles, and whether any of them were suited for it didn't really matter. It was just making the numbers. And as a young vice president, I was put under a lot of pressure. Hey, Billy Bob, how come the 35-man sales team doesn't have a single woman on it? Why are you not? What's the problem here? Do you hate women? Or so, you get all that sort of crap thrown at you. So you kind of have to do it, if anything, to get the board of directors and those sort of guys just off your back. Get the CEO constantly, every meeting, he'd want to raise that as an issue. Why the fuck do you give a shit about this? How about we worry about the business? But no, he had to bring it up and pester me about it. So I noticed, I didn't think it was a good idea. I didn't mind if the women were qualified and had earned their position, but I didn't believe they should be gifted the position simply because they're women, which is really what I was under pressure to do, even back then. It's got worse since. So I thought, okay, I'll put out an advert, and 100, for example, I'm just using round numbers here. 100 people apply for this is like a technical sales role, so it's pretty technical, very engineering sort of heavy, but it's a technical sales role. And so I put an advert out, and 98 people apply, and then there's only 2 women. One woman is just a joke. She's a nutcase. I'm not wouldn't. And the other one is not qualified, doesn't have the credentials, but at least she's barely plausible, quite well presented, reasonably well spoken. So, okay, I'll run with you. Now, she's getting the job not because she's qualified. I'm having to not hire a qualified man to give her this job. But at least I can get the CEO out of my face. So I hire her, but when it comes to the quarterly evaluation and this sort of thing, she's in a panic. And I've mentioned these sort of things before. She's terrified of accountability. Every woman in every managerial position or a position of responsibility, doesn't have to be a senior manager, every woman is terrified of accountability, in the same way that I remember girls at school were terrified of examinations. They hated examinations. It was a strictly pass or fail gig, and they didn't want it. They didn't like it. Boys didn't mind. And that was why, certainly in the earlier part of high school, boys came first in everything. But the top 10 students were always boys. If a girl even made it into the top 10, there was a sort of an intake of breath everywhere. Paula came 9th out of the this sort of thing. So and this was the same in the workplace. The accountability, they're terrified of accountability. And when it came to the quarterly performance evaluation, which I was obligated to do, they would come in and they would open this. The opening comment would be, "I just know you hate women. I just know you hate me. I just know you're going to give me a bad report. I just know that I just know this." And the attitude they would come in with was unbelievable. I mean, just accept. Did you or did you not do the job? And that objectivity rather than subjectivity. That objectivity terrified them. It always did. And I was got, men, there would always be some men at the margins. If they think they weren't getting on with you, they'd be a little bit suspicious over how you might rate them or grade them. But the women were absolutely adamant that they had to manufacture this drama, that it was a huge plot against them. Oh, you hate me. I know you hate me, and this sort of stuff. And they were all like that. And if you pointed out even the slightest sort of, well, I notice you've been coming in late. Oh, you say that, and well, what? Yeah, so what? You just hate me for that? Is it? Is that what you say? And they try and turn it around and try and create it and present it as there was some sort of a conflict dynamic in place. And the only way out for me is her boss or boss's boss in this case was to give her exactly what she wanted. Give her a glowing report, 100% in all things, and only that could satisfy her that there wasn't some secret hatred lurking there somewhere in the the murky waters or whatever. So no, I wouldn't have that. No, I'm not having that. You'll be evaluated exactly the same as everyone else, and if you've made the numbers and succeeded and done your job, that's what the report will reflect. And there are also instances where they try and come on to me and trade sex for a good grade. And certainly the sexual favors for a good grade. Certainly the academics that I've known. Well, one guy, he was probably my age, about the age I am now, but he was an academic, not wearing too well either. And he would say that he was a science or geology or something like that, some science lecturer, and he would say how many he was required to have a certain number of female students in the class, whether they were up to it or not. And the university was accepting, subpar students, provided they were female or black or so, or black female in particular. And so he had to have them in the class, and they knew that they were, the weaker students knew that they weren't up to it. They were looking at the work and thinking, holy fuck, I can't do this. And they would openly come to him and say, look, I'll give you a hand job, a day, or a blow job a day if you give me a good grade. And he was saying it's just happening all the time. But he said it never used to happen because the higher quality students know that they can do well on their own merits, whereas the weaker students, these women or girls, 19, 20-year-olds or whatever, they know that they can't pass on merit, so they've got to find another way. And their way of doing it is to try and avoid the responsibility, the accountability, and the grading system. If they can get around that grading system, then they'll make it through to the other end. Whereas if they have to be graded with the same level as the men are, then they'll fail. And the same thing happened with women coming to me for pay rises. And they would say, well, Billy Bob gets more money than I, gets paid more than I. Well, yeah, but Billy Bob's producing way more results than you are. He's way more experienced and credentialed and qualified, and so on. He's got X amount of experience and this and that. And they would wave that away. No. The reason you're not paying me as much as him is because you hate me. And they would constantly come back to that. But the idea that where I'm going with this is, all these women had the rules do not apply to them unless they're getting what they want in spades, like promotions and pay rises being showered upon them. Unless they're given that non-meritoriously, just because they're a woman, unless they get that or given that, then that's it. They're not happy. It's not right. It's unfair. You hate women. It's misogyny. It's patriarchy. It's fascism, and so on and so forth. But the idea is the rules don't apply to them. And if the rules apply equally to everybody, then they are, as they see it, discriminated against. Only when the rules, they can have special rules applied to them, which is effectively dispensation type stuff. Only when they have that are they satisfied. The men can be harshly judged, but not the women. Is the attitude. Now, this was pretty much universal. Now, if there were any exceptions, women who were prepared to accept responsibility and so on, then I can't remember any of them displaying that. There must mathematically, there has to be some. but I just don't remember it. I don't remember coming across, well, gee, the Billie Jean's good there. She's really accepting the responsibility. And even having women sitting in evaluations sort of with some stupid, insipid fucking grin on their face saying, well, if I had a dick, I'd be the CEO of this company. Yeah, sure you would, you lazy fuck, I don't say that, by the way, but yeah, and you just have to ignore that. Yeah, they're baiting you, constantly baiting you, trying to get you to bite. They're either trying to get you to say something like, well, that's right, I think women shouldn't be given these jobs, or something like that. They try and bait you for that, or try and bait you to create a level of conflict. So you say, oh, well, see, you can't grade me objectively because we've just had an argument. And in fact, they've tried to create the drama anyway. So this. So I'm not surprised to see this thing that nearly all the people that die on safaris or are killed are women. I'm not surprised because it's consistent with the behaviour that you see now in the Western world. The illusion, the delusion, the insanity of the social system that's being forced upon us is this equal outcomes, equity, and all this sort of stuff, which means people who just aren't suited in any way for responsibility are being put in positions of responsibility. And if you see the type of people that are being killed in these safaris, they're the ones you'd expect, HR directors and that sort of thing. It's those sort of people, social justice activists at an NGO, and the list goes on. It's just the suspects you would imagine that would be ignoring the tour guide's warnings and suggestions and guidance, and just going off and doing their own thing, and then suffering. Then this, wandering off a place where they're looking at large constrictor snakes, and none of these snakes can weigh 250 pounds, and and some woman wanders off and sits under a tree, and next thing you know, the snake's chopping on her and has eaten her before the others realise she's gone. And for goodness sakes. You were Tacitus today at your Pushback Channel. Thank you for listening.